The bridge of the Terran defense ship Retribution thrummed with low-power hums, every console alive with soft blue light. The smell of recycled air carried a faint hint of ozone, the kind that clung to warships that had burned too hot for too long. Commander James Martinez sat in the captain's chair, his posture straight but his eyes heavy, watching the flow of intelligence data across his personal display. It had been 3 months since the Zephyrian incursion into the Sol system. 3 months of waiting, planning, and reinforcing every inch of Earth's outer defenses. The Crystalline Empire had underestimated humanity once before, and James knew they would come again. Pride was a sickness in their blood, carved into every faceted gleam of their ships. "Commander," Lieutenant Fiza Khan's voice cut through the quiet, crisp and certain. "Long-range sensors have a contact. Multiple contacts, fleet-sized." James' jaw tightened. He leaned forward, staring at the tactical overlay as the display filled with hard blue markers. The numbers mounted, each one more staggering than the last. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and one vessel unlike the rest, a massive crystalline wedge at the heart of the formation. The Supremacy. "They're sending their flagship," James said, his tone more grim amusement than surprise. "Looks like they still think this system belongs to them." Fiza turned, her dark eyes reflecting the tactical glow. "They're broadcasting, sir. Demands for immediate surrender of all Terran colonies. Recognition of Zephyrian supremacy." "Of course they were." James rose slowly, the stiff lines of his uniform catching the light. 3 centuries they've ruled the Outer Rim, 40 systems enslaved, dozens of species broken, and yet they still don't understand what we are. He stepped closer to the central display, watching the alien formation slide deeper into the Sol system, their jewel-like hulls scattering starlight like predators adorned in finery. Humanity's ships, by contrast, looked like steel knives and blackened anvils, ugly things, built to endure, to fight, to bleed, and still strike back. "Lieutenant," James said softly, "initiate Protocol Omega." Fiza's hands danced across her console. A green icon pulsed across the command net. Mining barges, research vessels, patrol craft, every scattered dot around Sol lit up. The illusion fell away. The mask cracked, and humanity's defense grid revealed itself in all its terrible order. From the asteroid belt, what the Zephyrians had mocked as space debris ignited with sudden life. Hidden hangars split open, hull plating shifted, and cannon mouths emerged like wolves baring teeth. Dozens, no, hundreds, of camouflaged Terran warships powered up, their hulls painted in the gray-black hues of rock. James allowed himself one short smile. "Target their command ship," he ordered. "Let them feel what it means to ignore a warning." The first volley ripped the silence of space apart. Plasma torpedoes streaked like burning comets. Kinetic slugs the size of buildings hurled forward at fractions of light speed. Antimatter warheads bloomed with pale, killing fire. The Zephyrian fleet reeled as the opening blow smashed through their vanguard, crystalline armor splintering in jagged, glittering eruptions. Fiza's voice rose above the storm, calm even in chaos. "Their shields are shifting, adapting to energy frequencies. They're learning." "Then stop speaking their language," James said coldly. "Switch to kinetic bombardment pattern Delta, break their bones." The Retribution and her sister ships obeyed. A rain of iron and tungsten slammed into Zephyrian hulls. The glittering ships cracked under the assault, their elegance undone by sheer brutality. But the battle was not yet won. The Supremacy stirred. Its massive bulk moved with uncanny grace, rotating to retreat toward open space. Crystal spines along its hull flared with energy, releasing beams that carved Terran vessels into molten wreckage. For a moment, the tide seemed ready to turn. Then the outer system platforms awoke. Satellites, mere weather relays, or so they seemed, unfolded in perfect synchrony. Their cores throbbed with power built up over weeks, stored and hidden for this exact day. Particle beams, titanic and merciless, converged on the retreating flagship. The Supremacy's hull screamed. Crystalline lattices that had shrugged off fleets for centuries shattered in cascading fractures. Explosions rippled across its length, systems collapsing one after another. "Commander," Fiza said, her voice trembling despite her discipline, "the Zephyrian fleet is breaking. Dreadnoughts destroyed, cruisers scattered, the flagship venting atmosphere, complete system failure." James exhaled slowly. "Open a channel." The screen flickered. A crystalline being filled the view, tall, faceted, alien beauty marred by shock. Its voice rasped through a translator, brittle as glass under strain. Impossible, we are the Zapirian Empire. We have conquered 40 worlds. How can primitives like you? Because we're not like the others, James cut in, his voice steady, his words like iron. We don't surrender, we don't negotiate from weakness, and we don't give third chances. This was your second warning. There will not be a third. The alien faltered. For the first time, its eyes reflected fear. On the tactical overlay, the remaining Zephyrian ships fled, limping, broken, scarred. They would carry the story home. They would carry the shame. But James Martinez sat back, his expression unreadable. He knew this was not victory, not yet. This was the first shatter, the first blow against an empire that had never known true resistance. And when word spread across the stars, when others learned that Earth had stood unbroken, the galaxy would change. Allies or enemies, both would come. James looked into the endless dark, his voice low, a whisper meant only for himself. This was only the beginning. The Sol system was quiet again, too quiet. The debris of shattered crystalline hulls drifted in glittering fields across the void, catching the light of the sun like frozen rain. For hours after the retreat, recovery ships moved silently between the wrecks, searching for survivors. Some found nothing but twisted shards. Others retrieved escape pods, most filled with lifeless Zapirian corpses. But one vessel brought back something unexpected. James Martinez stood in the dim light of the Retribution's medical bay, his arms folded tight across his chest. His eyes locked on the figure sealed inside the stasis pod. It was Zapirian, crystalline armor-like skin cracked in jagged lines, its breathing shallow, each rise of its chest sounding like glass groaning under weight. Lieutenant Fiza Khan stood beside him, her face unreadable. "We should let it die, sir. It would do the same to us without hesitation." James didn't answer right away. He remembered battlefields back on Earth, years before space had claimed him. He remembered wounded enemies lying in the dirt, begging for water, and men who gave it even when vengeance cried louder. Humanity had carried its savagery into the stars, but also its stubborn compassion. "No," James said at last. "Patch it up, stabilize it, I want it alive." Fiza turned sharply. "Alive? Commander, this thing represents an empire that enslaved 40 worlds. It demanded our surrender only hours ago." "Which is why we need it breathing," James replied. "Every empire has cracks. This one may tell us where to strike." The medics began their work. Strange tools hummed as they passed through the Zapirian's crystalline skin, healing fractures with energy fields. James didn't move until the stasis pod's life monitors leveled. Only then did he turn to leave. As he stepped onto the corridor, the ship seemed to shudder beneath his boots. Not from damage, but from tension, the kind that lived in every crew member's chest. They had won, but not without cost. 2 destroyers lost, dozens of fighters, hundreds of lives. And this was only one battle. On the far side of the Sol system, a different conversation was unfolding. Admiral Chen's fleet lingered near Jupiter's orbit, patrols weaving between the moons. A secure link pulsed open, bridging his flagship with the Retribution. Chen's weathered face filled James' hollow display, his eyes sharp despite his age. "You did well, Commander," Chen said, his voice heavy with the calm weight of decades at war. "But don't let the victory blind you. The Zapirians won't forget this. They won't forgive it." James nodded. "I don't expect them to, which is why we prepare." Chen leaned forward. "We already are. Earth's governments will spin this into triumph. Morale will soar, colonies will cheer. But you and I know what comes next. Retaliation. And escalation," James added. The Admiral's gaze hardened. "The Outer Rim has been waiting for someone to break the Zapirian's grip. That's us now, which means every enslaved species will look to Earth for hope or for destruction. The Council of Mars will meet in 3 days. I want you there. We'll need voices like yours." The channel cut, silence returned. James made his way to the observation deck, a space he rarely visited. From here, Earth itself was a pale blue dot through reinforced glass. He watched it quietly, lost in thought, until Fiza joined him. "You think Chen's right?" she asked softly. "I know he's right," James replied. "Word is already spreading. The Zapirians won't let this go unanswered, and when the next wave comes, it won't be 12 dreadnoughts. It'll be their empire." Fiza folded her arms. "So what do we do?" James looked at Earth again, so small, so fragile. We do what humans always do. We adapt, we endure, we fight. The Zapirian prisoner awoke. Its crystalline body glowed faintly under the medbay lights. Its eyes opened, multifaceted, catching every detail of its sterile cage. It tried to rise, but restraints locked it in place. James stepped inside, his boots echoing. The alien's gaze fixed on him, hard and unyielding. Terran, the translator rasped, its tone sharp with contempt. Why am I not dead? Because, James said evenly, I want you alive. The Zapirian hissed, a sound like shattering glass. Mercy is weakness, you invite destruction. James leaned close to the stasis pod, his voice dropping. Or maybe mercy is what makes us different. You mistake it for weakness, but it's how we win. You've crushed dozens of worlds. But did you ever once wonder if they might have fought differently if they had something worth protecting, if they had someone willing to protect them? The Zapirian said nothing. Its many eyes narrowed, but behind them James saw something flicker. Not fear, not yet, but uncertainty. He smiled grimly. That was enough. Later, alone in his quarters, James sat staring at a report blinking on his datapad. It was encrypted, buried under codes only the highest brass could see. He had broken protocol just to open it. The report spoke of whispers beyond the Sol system. Strange signals, fleets shifting in the dark, other empires watching, waiting. The galaxy was stirring and Earth's defiance had lit the fire. James shut the pad. His reflection in the dark glass looked older than he felt, the lines on his face carved deep by war and weight. A chime sounded, Fiza's voice over comms. Commander, you'll want to see this. The prisoner, it's asking to speak with you again. The medbay lights dimmed to a faint glow, the only sound the steady rhythm of the stasis pod's monitors. Commander James Martinez stood alone at the side of the crystalline prisoner. A thin line of light pulsed across the alien's chest with each ragged breath, a reminder that despite its alien form, despite centuries of cruelty from its empire, this being was mortal, breakable. The Zapirian's eyes opened slowly, faceted spheres that seemed to catch and bend every photon in the room. Its gaze fixed on James, cold but steady. You came, the translator whispered in clipped tones. You command, you kill, and yet you return. James folded his arms. You asked for me, speak. The alien hissed, its crystalline body flexing against restraints. Why mercy? Why not end me with the others? Because, James said, his voice calm, death is easy. But knowledge, that's harder to live with. You know things about your empire that can save lives or end them. That's why you're still breathing. The Zapirian's mouth, if it could be called that, twisted slightly. Not a smile, more like a fracture forming in glass. You wish to use me against my people. I wish, James replied, leaning closer, to understand what we're up against. I've seen your fleets, I've seen your arrogance, but I've also seen fear in your eyes. You're not invincible, so tell me, where do you break? For a long silence, the alien did not move. Then it spoke slower now, as though each word cost something. The Empire is not as you think. The Council of Facets rules, but the Council fears. Resources thin. Rival factions grow. The supremacy was not only a weapon, it was a message. It was meant to remind our people that we are still gods among primitives, and yet you shattered it. James studied the alien carefully. His instincts told him this was truth, but truth spoken by someone who had everything to gain by sowing division. What's your name? James asked suddenly. The Zapirian blinked, taken aback. Names matter not to us. They do to me, James said firmly. If we're going to talk, I'm not calling you prisoner. Another pause, the alien's chest rose and fell, light flickering inside its body like embers. Varix, it said at last. James gave a single nod. Then, Varix, you're going to tell me what the cracks in your empire look like, and maybe, just maybe, you'll live long enough to see what happens when someone stands up to it. The days that followed blurred into a storm of politics and preparation. The Council of Mars convened in their domed chambers, voices rising in heated debate as James stood silently at the back, watching. Admiral Chen's gravel voice cut through the chamber. The Zapirians will return stronger and angrier. If we do not unite, Earth and her colonies will burn. The time for half measures is over. We declare sovereignty not just over Sol, but every approach within 50 light years. If they cross that line, they die. Murmurs rippled. Some delegates nodded fiercely. Others paled at the thought of drawing such a line in the stars. It was then that another figure rose. She was not human. Slender, scaled, her skin shifting shades of blue under the chamber's light. An alien representative from the Velari people, one of the countless species subjugated by the Crystalline Empire. Her voice carried both grief and fire. My world burned under their boots. My kin work as slaves in their crystal mines. But today I heard whispers. Whispers that humans shattered their pride, that the supremacy lies in ruins. If you fight Earth, if you truly fight, we will fight with you. The chamber erupted. Half the room shouted in support, the other half in fear. James leaned forward, feeling the weight of the moment settle in his chest. Humanity had lit a beacon, and already others were gathering to its flame. Later, outside the chambers, the Velari approached James directly. "You are Commander Martinez," she asked, her voice softer now. "The one who broke the supremacy." James gave a tired half-smile. "That's what they're calling it." "My name is Sierra," she said, her luminous eyes meeting his. "I saw my brother shattered on the crystal pikes of the Zapirians. I have nothing left but vengeance. If you fight them, Commander, I will fight beside you. But you must understand, compassion alone will not win. Their cruelty is not weakness, it is their strength." James studied her face, the way pain shaped every word she spoke. "Compassion isn't about weakness," he said quietly. "It's about remembering what we're fighting for. Without that, we're no better than them." Sierra tilted her head uncertain, but she did not argue. Back aboard the Retribution, James returned to the medbay once more. Varric stirred as he entered, eyes glowing faintly in the dimness. "You spoke to others," Varric rasped. "I felt the tremor in your people's nets. More species will come. They will gather to you as insects to flame." "Maybe," James admitted. "Or maybe they'll run in fear. That's the thing about sparks. You never know if they'll light a fire or burn out." Varric's crystalline fingers flexed against the restraints. "You do not understand. The Council will not stop with fleets. They will unleash something worse. Old weapons, forgotten wars. If you do not kill me now, I may be forced to watch as they burn your world." James' eyes narrowed. "Then help us stop them." Varric turned away, but not before James saw it again. That flicker of doubt, the fracture running just a little deeper. That night, James stood alone in his quarters, staring at a hollow map of the stars. The Sol system glowed bright at the center, human fleets forming a net around it. Beyond, the expanse stretched, systems enslaved, civilizations erased. But now a single ember had been lit, and embers could grow into infernos. His comm panel chimed, Fiza's voice urgent. "Commander, you need to get to the bridge, now." James turned sharply. "Report." Her voice tightened, fear threading through her usual control. Long-range sensors just picked up something. Not Zapirian, something else. An unidentified fleet massing at the edge of our space. The bridge of the Retribution thrummed with nervous energy. The main viewing screen displayed the distant shimmer of a fleet, black and silent against the backdrop of nebulae. Sensors blinked sporadically, struggling to classify the ships. James Martinez stood at the center, his hands resting on the rail. "Scan again," he ordered, voice steady but tight. "Full spectrum, all frequencies." Fiza's fingers danced over the console. "Already done, Commander. They're unusual, not Zapirian, not anything we have records on. No communications signature. Shielding is advanced, almost like they don't want to be found." Sierra stepped forward, her scales rippling with tension. "Their formation, it's strange, not the arrogance of conquerors. It's defensive, maybe even cautious. They're waiting, watching." James narrowed his eyes. "Or baiting us." The fleet's hulls reflected the distant light of a dying star, crystalline yet darkened with matte plating, almost organic in appearance. Unlike the Zapirians' gleaming, sharp-edged warships, these were curved, smooth, like giant sea creatures frozen in flight. Something ancient seemed to hum from them, a resonance that made the bridge lights flicker. "Commander," Fiza said, voice dropping, "their energy signatures are pulsing like a heartbeat. I've never seen technology behave like this." James clenched his jaw. "Life forms or weapons?" Before anyone could answer, the sensors screamed. A wave of interference hit the bridge consoles, throwing panels into chaos. Lights stuttered, alarms blared. "What the hell?" Sierra hissed. James grabbed the nearest console. "All systems manual, shields up, weapons armed, prepare for anything." The fleet moved then. Slowly, deliberately, forming a massive crescent around the Retribution. From the bridge, it looked almost like a living organism circling a prey it intended to study before striking. Fiza's voice was strained. "Commander, they're scanning us, not with weapons, they are reading. I can feel it. Our patterns, energy output, even neural signatures. It's like they're inside my mind without touching me." James swallowed hard. "Calm, focus, don't react emotionally. Humans survive because we adapt. That's what we're going to do now." Sierra's tail lashed nervously. They are not Zapirian, you're right, but they know fear. I've seen it in their form, in the way their hulls quiver when we make even the smallest maneuver. They are cautious for a reason." James paced. "Cautious doesn't mean harmless. Every empire we've ever faced underestimated humanity once. They all thought our compassion was weakness, and they all." The bridge shuddered. Deep, resonant vibrations filled the decks. Fiza looked up pale. "Commander, they're signaling us, not with sound, not with light. Thought maybe, memory, emotions." James frowned. "Interpret it now." A moment of silence stretched. Then in Fiza's mind, images formed. Flashes of planets, burning cities, ancient beings bending light, waves of energy lashing across stars. And then one image, vivid, personal, almost intimate, of a human child, laughing, untouched, safe. "They want us to understand something," Fiza whispered. "They're showing us what we fight for, or what they once protected, or both." James exhaled slowly. "So they're not enemies, not yet, but they're testing us, like the Zapirians tested their slaves, only this is different." Sierra's gaze was sharp. "Different how?" "They're not cruel," James said. "They have intelligence, yes, power, yes, but they are guardians or remnants, something older than the Zapirian Empire, maybe even older than recorded human history." Fiza's voice trembled. "I feel their pain. They've seen civilizations rise and fall. They remember the cost of empires. They've lived through horrors we can't imagine." James turned to the crew. "Prepare a message, clear, simple. We are explorers. We come not to conquer, but to protect and understand. That's all we have, that's all we are." The message was sent in quantum pulses, encoded not just in sound or light, but in emotion, intent, and memory fragments. A delicate, trembling thread of human essence reached across the void. Minutes felt like hours. Then a response, not words, not visuals, but a wave of understanding that rolled through the bridge, a sensation of trust, of recognition, and of warning. Fiza's eyes widened. They accept it, partly, but there's a shadow beyond this understanding. Something waits beyond their watch, something terrible. James clenched his fists. "Not now, not yet. We have allies and we have the will. That's enough for today." Sierra's voice was quiet but firm. "Commander, we cannot trust them entirely. Their caution hides something. Every guardian I've ever known carried secrets, sometimes deadly ones." James nodded. "Then we tread carefully, always." Meanwhile, deep within the Zapirian Empire, Varix's council chamber erupted in fury. "You allowed humans to survive?" a crystalline voice bellowed. "They've allied with our victims. They've reached beyond our reach." Varix stood in the center, fractured light dancing along its body. "We underestimated them," it admitted. "Not just their ingenuity, but their resilience, and their allies are forming faster than we anticipated." A faction leader hissed, shards of crystal clattering on the floor. "Then we strike, send the fleets, show them the true power of the Empire." Varix shook its head. "No, we need information, and that means patience. The humans, they are unpredictable, but they are not naive. If we strike blindly, we lose more than we gain. Wait, watch, and prepare for the moment when we must act decisively." Even as the council plotted, a tremor ran through Varix's core. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept in. The humans, they had changed the rules, and once rules changed, nothing remained certain. Back aboard the Retribution, James studied the distant fleet. "Fiza," he said, voice low, "plot a course that keeps us visible but safe. We need to learn more about them. And Sierra," he paused, looking at the alien ally, "thank you for trusting us enough to be here. We'll need every ally we can find." Sierra nodded. Her luminescent eyes reflected the stars beyond. "I hope your instincts are right, Commander. Humanity may survive or be crushed before the dawn." James exhaled, leaning against the rail. "We adapt, Sierra. That's what we do. That's what makes us human, and we won't stop now, not when so many are counting on us." A new message blinked on the console. It was Varix. "The Council does not yet know what has awakened. Prepare yourselves. Shadows move where you do not see." The bridge went silent. A shiver ran through every crew member. The human and alien forces had survived the first clash, but beyond the stars, something ancient, aware, and dangerous was stirring. The Retribution drifted closer to the pulsating fleet, each ship a massive, curved form that reflected starlight like a living jewel. The vibrations in the hull grew stronger, almost like a heartbeat that resonated through every deck, every console, every living being aboard. James Martinez stood on the bridge, jaw tight, staring at the anomaly before him. I want every sensor pushing data to me. Quantum scans, gravimetric analysis, temporal fluctuations, everything. We need to know what we're dealing with. Fiza's claws tapped the console rapidly. Commander, there's something unusual about their core energy. It's sentient, not alive in the biological sense, but intelligent. It reacts to our presence. It shifts when we maneuver, almost as if it's communicating without us realizing. Sierra's tail flicked nervously. This is unlike anything I've ever encountered. Even the Zapirians were predictable, logic, hierarchy, fear. This is different. It thinks like a networked mind, but older, wiser, and careful, like it remembers everything. James ran a hand through his hair. We're not here to fight, not yet. We're here to understand. And understanding means getting close enough to communicate without provoking hostility. The fleet pulsed again, a wave of sensation rippling through the Retribution. This time the sensation was unmistakable, curiosity. They were observing, testing, measuring. Fiza's voice trembled. Commander, they're inviting us, a corridor of safe passage. Energy readings indicate no immediate threat, though the feeling of caution is overwhelming. James nodded. Take it slow, every move deliberate, no surprises. This is diplomacy by presence, not words. The ship moved, threading carefully through the curved, radiant vessels. As they passed, James noticed something extraordinary. Within the hulls, light patterns shifted like living memories. Flashes of worlds, battles, peaceful cities, catastrophic collapses. And always a sense of preservation. These ships were more than war machines. They were archivists, protectors of history, witnesses to civilizations long gone. Suddenly, one ship detached from the formation and floated alongside the Retribution. A faint ripple extended from its hull, vibrations, colors, and images blending into an almost tactile experience. Fiza's eyes widened. They're reaching out not with words, with emotion, memory, history. They want us to see to understand them. James steadied himself. Then we see. Open your minds, everyone. Let them tell their story. Images flooded the bridge. Scenes of crystalline cities, luminous beings walking vast halls of light, wars that shattered stars and treaties that reshaped galaxies. The ships themselves were remnants of an empire that once spanned sectors, now scattered yet vigilant. They had survived countless conflicts, countless betrayals, and now humans had entered their awareness. Sierra whispered almost to herself, "They're alone, guardians without a home. They've endured loss after loss." James' voice was soft. Then they'll understand compassion. That's the thing humans excel at, protecting when others abandon, risking when others flee. The pulse of the vessel's presence shifted again, this time with urgency. Images of a dark void, creeping energy, and civilizations consumed by shadows flashed. A warning, clear and undeniable. Something older, more malevolent than even the Zapirians, was advancing. Fiza's tail twitched. Commander, the shadow is moving. It's not just beyond the fleet. It's aware of us, of the Guardians, and it's coming. James swallowed. Then we have no time. We need answers fast. Sierra, any way to communicate more directly. The alien nodded. Possibly, but it's dangerous. Direct neural link requires trust, absolute trust. And humans, we must be honest. Fear can fracture the connection. James glanced around the bridge, meeting the eyes of his crew. We've survived fear before. We've adapted. We've overcome impossible odds. Now we do it again. Fiza hesitated. Commander, the link, it's not just communication. It shares perception, memories, emotions. You cannot hide intent. You must be completely open or the bond will fail. James took a deep breath. Then we open, tell them who we are, who humanity is, why we fight, why we survive. The neural interface extended from the nearest Guardian vessel, a delicate lattice of light, energy, and crystalline matter. James stepped forward, placing his hands on the interface. Instantly, a flood of sensation overwhelmed him. Memories of Earth, childhood, loss, triumph, fear, hope all merged with the Guardian's own experiences. Pain, joy, courage, despair, love. It was raw, unfiltered, and terrifying. Sierra gasped. Commander, hold on, do not resist, let them see, let them understand. James nodded, though sweat ran down his face. I'm showing them everything, humanity, all of it. The Guardians pulsed in response, a wave of comprehension washing over the bridge. Images of humans helping each other, protecting the weak, risking life for strangers, flashed across the crew's minds. Not weapons, not war, but courage and empathy. Fiza whispered, they understand. They recognize the human spirit. Then almost immediately, a surge of terror hit. James saw it before he could even react, a dark, writhing presence spreading across the stars like ink in water. It devoured light, matter, memory. The Guardians recoiled, shields pulsing, energy rippling outward. It's coming, James gasped. Whatever it is, it's beyond anything we've faced, even the Zapirians. Sierra's scales shimmered violently. We need to warn Earth, and warn the Guardians. If it reaches the systems it seeks, nothing survives. Fiza's claws tightened on the console. Commander, it's faster than our sensors can track, almost intelligent, hunting, learning, adapting. James clenched his fists. Then we prepare, we adapt. Humanity survived everything by adapting. This will be no different, but first we need allies, and we need trust. The Guardians pulsed again, this time sending a wave of determination, merging their ancient will with the human crew's ingenuity. Together, they shared a singular understanding. The shadow must be stopped, or countless civilizations would perish. A new message arrived, not through conventional communication, but through shared consciousness. The shadow approaches, your presence awakens it, your choices will define survival. Trust is fragile, time is short, prepare yourselves. James looked at Sierra, then Fiza. This is bigger than any one species, it's bigger than the Zapirians, we fight for everything together. Are you with me? Sierra's luminescent eyes gleamed. Always. Fiza nodded resolute. For humanity, for the Guardians, for survival. James exhaled, feeling the weight of the universe pressing against them. Then let's move. We have a shadow to face and a galaxy to save. The void ahead was a black maw, stretching across the starlit corridor with an unnatural presence. Every sensor on the Retribution screamed warnings, yet the ship pressed forward. Humanity had never fled in the face of unknown danger, and James Martinez was not about to start now. Fiza stood beside him on the bridge, her claws clenching the railing. Commander, I've never felt fear like this. It's conscious, patient, and cruel. James nodded, jaw tight. Then we fight smart, not hard, observe, adapt, exploit weaknesses. We survive by thinking faster than it can react. Sierra's luminescent eyes scanned the approaching darkness. It knows we're here. It's probing our minds, our fears, our memories. It's trying to understand us, to predict us. The Retribution's engines pulsed in response, energy rippling as the Guardians' ships aligned, forming a protective lattice around the human vessel. Their pulsing lights created a barrier of sorts, a shimmering lattice of memory, empathy, and raw will. Then the shadow moved. It flowed forward like liquid night, dissolving stars, snuffing the light of distant suns in seconds. The crew felt it first as an emptiness, a sensation that gnawed at their bones, their thoughts, their sense of reality. Fiza gasped, her claws scraping the console. Commander, it's touching us, not physically, mentally, emotionally, it's feeding on fear, on despair. James clenched his fists. Then we deny it. Strength comes from hope, from courage. Everyone focus on what we protect, not what we might lose. Sierra stepped forward, energy radiating from her body. I can channel the Guardian's lattice into a focused resonance. If we synchronize with your human resolve, we may slow it. But it will be dangerous. The shadow, it doesn't just attack bodies, it attacks will. James took a deep breath. Do it. I trust you, all of you. Humanity adapts, we survive. The bridge became a storm of light and sensation. The Guardian's lattice pulsed, flowing into James and the crew, intertwining with human neural pathways. Fear came cold and overwhelming, but James focused on memories of Earth. Children laughing, cities rebuilding after disasters, ordinary people saving each other from floods and fire. The shadow recoiled, reacting to the surge of determination. But it adapted quickly. Tendrils of darkness snaked toward the ships, dissolving matter, bending space, twisting perception. Crew members clutched their heads as hallucinations assaulted them, visions of their worst failures, losses, and fears, magnified tenfold. Commander, Fiza shouted, it's trying to break the connection. We must anchor ourselves, anchors of memory, of will. James' mind raced. He saw it, what the shadow sought to destroy, not just life but hope, trust, empathy, the very essence of species cooperation. He screamed mentally through the neural bond. We endure, we protect, we adapt. The Guardians responded, a wave of synchronized light and emotion. Ships vibrated, emitting a resonance that pushed the shadow back momentarily. But it was only a delay. The darkness surged again, faster, more violent, stretching tendrils toward the retribution. The hull groaned, systems flickered, alarms screamed. Sierra's voice trembled, though her body radiated power. "Commander, if this continues, we risk the lattice collapsing. The bond might fracture, we could lose connection, and the shadow will consume everything." James' heart pounded. "Then we fight differently. FISA target their core, not with weapons, but with ingenuity, disrupt their neural pathways, make them see us not as prey, but as equals who cannot be consumed." FISA's claws moved rapidly across the console, fingers blurring. She manipulated energy, lattice feedback, and guardian resonance in ways that challenged the laws of physics and reality itself. I'm forcing communication, forced recognition, but it's unstable." The shadow writhed, a living nightmare of darkness, shrieking in ways that bypassed sound, vibrating directly in consciousness. The crew felt the scream in their bones, a chorus of every civilization the shadow had devoured. James gritted his teeth. "Hold the line, focus on why we fight, protect those who cannot protect themselves. Humanity survives because we fight for each other." The Guardian's lattice pulsed in synchrony with human emotion. Light flared, colors unseen by any human eye exploded across space, and for a moment the shadow hesitated. Recognition flickered within its form. It sensed empathy, courage, resilience, an unfamiliar force. Then the unthinkable happened. The shadow retaliated. It struck at the Retribution's engines, twisting matter, consuming energy, threatening to tear the ship apart. Sparks rained across the bridge, and the entire vessel shook violently. "Brace for impact," James shouted, gripping the console. Panels shattered, warning lights flashed, and the crew was thrown to the floor. Sierra roared, her voice amplified through the neural lattice. "We cannot hold, it's too strong. It will break through unless." Suddenly, a pulse from the Guardian's fleet struck the shadow. Not a weapon, not a blast of energy, but a wave of concentrated memory and empathy amplified by human ingenuity. The shadow screamed, a soundless cry that reverberated through the void. It recoiled. For the first time, the crew sensed hesitation, confusion. The shadow had not encountered such coordinated determination before. It had consumed countless civilizations, but never one that combined intelligence, courage, and empathy in such a perfect lattice. FISA panted, sweat streaming down her face. "Commander, it's reacting, not attacking directly yet, but if we falter, we're done." James gritted his teeth. "Then we do not falter, not now, not ever. Humanity did not survive by surrendering. We endure, we adapt, and we protect." Sierra's tail lashed, energy rippling outward. "I can amplify the lattice further, but I need you to anchor it, Commander. Your will must be unwavering." The shadow senses doubt. James closed his eyes, focusing. Memories of his family, his crew, Earth, every act of courage, every human triumph. He poured them all into the bond. The lattice flared, connecting human resilience to the ancient wisdom of the Guardians. The shadow screamed again, a wave of darkness that threatened to erase stars, then faltered. A single tendril reached out, hesitated, and recoiled. It was aware now. It saw them not as prey, but as sentient equals. Then, as suddenly as it attacked, it retreated, folding back into the void from which it came, leaving only empty darkness and the faint echoes of consumed worlds. The bridge was silent. Lights flickered, systems hummed uncertainly, and the crew slowly stood, trembling but alive. James exhaled, voice hoarse. It's gone for now, but it will return stronger, smarter, and it will remember us." Sierra's scales dimmed slightly. "We've bought time, but not victory. The shadow will adapt, and we must adapt faster." FISA wiped her brow. "Commander, the Guardians recognize your humanity as an ally, not a threat. That bond may be the key to surviving what's coming." James nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Then we prepare, we learn, we build, we survive, humanity and the Guardians together." As the crew began repairs, a message reached the Retribution. Not words, but a resonance, a memory shared from the Guardians. "You have awakened potential. The shadow fears unity. But it will test you and it will return. Prepare or all will be consumed. James looked out at the starlit void. The shadow had withdrawn for now, but its presence lingered, a promise of devastation yet to come. Humanity had faced extinction before, and now, on this alien world, they would face it again. But this time, they were not alone. The stars were quiet, too quiet. The retribution drifted through the void, engines humming cautiously as repairs continued. The shadow's retreat had left a scar across space, a stretch of darkness where light refused to exist, a reminder of what lay ahead. James Martinez stood on the bridge, fists clenched, jaw tight. His eyes swept across the crew, each member exhausted but determined. Fiza worked alongside engineers, her claws steady despite trembling fatigue. Sierra radiated calm energy, attempting to repair the lattice and stabilize the ship's damaged systems. "Commander," Fiza said, stepping up beside him, "our scans show the shadow's influence is receding, but residual echoes remain. It's studying us, learning, adapting. Whatever we do next, it will be prepared." James nodded. "Then we make sure we're ready first. Fear and hesitation gave it power before, not anymore. Humanity adapts. We build, we improvise, and we endure." Sierra's voice resonated across the bridge. "The Guardians confirm it. The Shadow has never encountered a species capable of empathy, ingenuity, and unity simultaneously. You are unprecedented. It fears what it cannot consume or control." James smiled faintly. "Then we make sure it stays afraid." The plan. For days, the Retribution and the Guardians coordinated. James, Fiza, and Sierra pored over the ship's systems, combining human engineering, alien technology, and Guardian resonance into a single strategy. They built traps in the void, fields of energy, memory, and emotion designed to slow the shadow. The lattice was upgraded to a defensive and offensive mechanism, capable of amplifying human will into tangible effects across space. Every crew member contributed, combining their courage and ingenuity to form a network no darkness could easily penetrate. "Think of it as a storm," James explained to the crew. "The shadow will strike, but we're the barrier. We channel our unity and resilience into it. Every act of cooperation, every memory of hope, every moment we save each other, it strengthens the storm. And when it strikes, it will hit us and hit us hard. But we survive, and in surviving, we win." Fiza's claws tapped across the console rapidly. "The lattice will collapse without constant reinforcement. We must remain linked mentally and emotionally. One fracture and—" James cut her off. "Then we do not fracture, we hold no matter the cost." The confrontation. The shadow returned like a tidal wave of void. Darkness poured into the star system, stretching toward the Retribution and the Guardian fleet. Its form was fluid, ever-shifting, a mass of conscious nightmare. James gritted his teeth. "All stations online. Connect with the lattice. Focus on unity. Humanity's will is unbreakable." The Guardians pulsed. The human crew extended their minds, anchoring memories of family, courage, and survival. The lattice shimmered with intensity, a bridge between species and hearts, a force the shadow could not predict. The darkness struck. Ships quaked, panels exploded, and alarms screamed. But the combined human-Guardian force held. The shadow tested their defenses, probing every weakness, but it could not predict ingenuity, could not foresee empathy, could not bend hearts that refused to break. James moved through the bridge, issuing commands. Every decision was precise, every action deliberate. When the shadow adapted, they adapted faster, rerouting energy, creating feedback loops, and amplifying emotion into strength. Fiza manipulated energy streams, creating pockets of resistance. Sierra amplified the resonance, projecting empathy and courage as tangible energy. Crew members across the ship joined the bond, memories and determination flowing like rivers into the lattice. The shadow shrieked, a sound that shattered sanity yet did not break will. It lashed out violently, tendrils of darkness striking at the Retribution, but every attack was countered by human ingenuity and Guardian cooperation. For hours the battle raged. The void trembled, stars flickered, and light battled darkness in a cosmic dance. And then James saw an opening. The turning point. The shadow's tendrils were overextended, attempting to consume both human will and Guardian resonance simultaneously. It had learned, adapted, but could not anticipate the depth of cooperation it faced. "Now," James shouted, "channel everything into the core, every memory, every act of courage, every bond we've formed." Sierra's energy surged, Fiza's claws danced across the console, and every crew member focused. The lattice became a beacon, a funnel of concentrated determination and hope shining across the void. The shadow hesitated, then recoiled, struck by the intensity of human unity and guardian resonance. It writhed, twisting, struggling, and for the first time it faltered entirely. James' voice thundered across the neural lattice. We do not fear, we endure, we protect, we survive. The combined force surged like a tidal wave, and the shadow was engulfed, not destroyed but contained. Its form collapsed into itself, retreating into a distant void, unable to break the network of life, hope, and courage. Silence followed. Stars shone brightly once more. The retribution floated, battered but unbroken, the guardians around it glowing faintly, their energy spent but steady. Aftermath. The crew emerged from the lattice, trembling but alive. Fiza leaned against the railing, claws scratched and scorched. Sierra's luminescence had dimmed, but her eyes shone with relief. James surveyed the aftermath. It's gone for now, but it will return someday, stronger, smarter, and we'll be ready because we adapt, we endure, and we protect each other no matter the species. The Guardian's leader, a massive being of crystalline light, spoke. You have done the impossible, not by force alone, but by uniting courage and wisdom. This lesson will echo across the cosmos. The shadow has been delayed, but it is wiser now. Humanity has proven it is not just a species, but a force. Sierra approached James. Commander, your species' ingenuity is unlike any the shadow has faced. It remembers fear, but it cannot understand courage, empathy, or unity. That is your advantage. James nodded, exhaustion and pride warring in his chest. Then we build on that. We prepare, not just for ourselves, but for anyone who cannot fight their own battles. A new dawn. The Retribution set a course back toward the human colonies on this alien world, joined by guardians who now trusted humanity. Crew members laughed softly, exchanged stories of heroism, and mourned those lost along the way. James stood at the observation deck, watching stars pass, each one a promise of life to protect. Fiza joined him, her claw brushing lightly against his shoulder. Do you think they'll come back? She asked quietly. James smiled, a weary but determined grin. Of course they will, but we'll be ready. Humanity survives because we fight for each other, and this is just the beginning. Sierra's voice echoed softly, a resonance through the observation deck. And wherever they go, humanity's light will follow. They will not consume, but they will remember. And you, all of you, have shown the galaxy what it means to endure, to hope, to protect. James looked out at the void, a vast, endless canvas of stars. He knew the shadow was out there, waiting. But humanity, the Guardians, and those who chose to fight alongside them had forged something stronger than fear, unity, courage, and an unbreakable will. The crystalline void ahead no longer seemed threatening. It was a challenge, a canvas for ingenuity, and a test humanity was ready to meet. The stars shone, and for the first time in a long time, hope burned brighter than fear. The shadow was delayed, not destroyed, a reminder that the universe would always pose new threats. But humanity, through ingenuity, compassion, and unity with alien allies, had turned the tide. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, leaving a lasting impression on both allies and enemies. The story closes with humanity and the Guardians looking toward the future, prepared for whatever challenges the cosmos might bring, hinting at new adventures and enduring HFY themes: courage, compassion, and adaptability.